So first let us look at what do we mean by control volume and material volume. Now, so in some problems, for example, when we are looking at aerodynamics or fluid dynamics, what we do is we analyze a certain region in space. Okay, so when it comes to control volume, what we are looking at is this is basically a region in space. Now, because this is a region in space, okay, so material can enter and leave the control volume. Okay, so material can enter and leave control volume. Control volume. Okay. Now, when we are looking at control volume, okay, so here typically the volume is fixed. The volume is fixed and material the volume is fixed and the material or field variables field variables can vary in the volume okay. Now, and related to this concept of control volume is an associated concept of spatial derivative. Okay, there is an associated concept of spatial derivative. Okay, so spatial time derivative. So for example, partial derivative of temperature with respect to time is a spatial time derivative, and this, for example, can be evaluated at some time, some position x equals to x naught and time t equals to t naught. Okay, spatial time derivative. Now, can anybody tell me as to intuitively speaking, what does spatial time derivative mean? What does spatial time derivative mean?
That is the derivative between space and time.
Sorry?
That is the value of the derivative at a certain point in space and at a certain time.
Evaluated at a certain point in space and at a certain time. Okay. Now, what you need to understand over here is whenever we are looking at a certain parameter, we can either be interested in tracking the material for a particular point and then looking at its property, or looking at a certain point in space. Let me take a specific example and help you understand these two concepts. So let us say that you are doing a sheet rolling operation. Okay, so in a sheet rolling operation, what do you have? So let me use this space. So let us say these are the two rollers. Okay, this is rotating like this, this is rotating like this. Now you have a sheet which you are inputting from here, and then because of the rolling operation the sheet thickness reduces and the sheet continues to move in this particular direction. So the sheet is moving in this particular direction. Now there are two ways to track temperature of the sheet metal. Normally we would use hot forming in order to do the rolling operation. So there are two ways to monitor the sheet temperature. What are they? So one option is to use a infrared temperature sensor, and then use this infrared temperature sensor in order to monitor the temperature of the sheet metal at this particular point P. Okay, P is a, what kind of a point is it? It is a point in space. Okay, why am I calling it a point in space? Because the sheet is moving and at different times the infrared sensor would be looking at different material points. So what is fixed? What is fixed is only the point in space at which the temperature is being monitored. So if I am using an infrared sensor in order to monitor the temperature of this point P, okay, and if I am going to then look at a plot of temperature at point P in space as a function of time. Okay, so let us say for whatever reason the temperature is fluctuating like this. Okay, then at any point T naught, so if this for example is T naught, then what will be my dt by partial time derivative with respect to time? It will be this particular slope over here. So this particular slope over here, this is negative, fine. So this particular slope over here would be, my, so if this angle is alpha, then tan alpha would be equal to dt by dt. Okay, please mute your microphones unless otherwise you are speaking. I can hear some background noise. Yeah, thank you. So this will be dt by dt. So fine, so this is about control volume. Okay, now what is material volume? Material volume is basically, as the name suggests, so this is a volume of material. So for example, if you are doing deep drawing, okay, if you are doing deep drawing, then you may start with a circular blank, okay, and you may go ahead and get something which looks like this. Okay, so now if I define a material, if I define a volume of material omega, then this volume omega, okay, at time t equals to 0, so omega at time t equals to 0 is becoming omega, this is the material volume at time t equals to some t prime. Okay, so second kind of an approach is tracking the material itself or tracking the material volume. Now when you're tracking the material volume, so what happens is the shape of material volume is not fixed. Shape of material volume is not fixed, meaning it can evolve with time. Shape of material volume is not fixed, but what is fixed? But its mass is fixed. Mass is fixed. In whatever problems we will be considering, we will not really be looking at generation of mass or vanishing of mass. Okay, in solid mechanics, fluid mechanics, aerodynamics, any biology problem, whatever problems you are going to look at, mass of the material volume is taken to be fixed. Okay, so shape of the material volume is not fixed, but its mass is fixed. So another point is material cannot enter or leave material volume. Okay, so it's like this. So let us say that you have taken a chewing gum and you're chewing on the chewing gum. Now if the chewing gum is your material volume of interest, then that shape of the chewing gum can change. You may stretch it, you may make it into some sort of a balloon. So its shape is not fixed, but the mass of the chewing gum is going to be fixed, and also when you are tracking that material volume, no new material can come or leave the material volume. Now in this context of material volume, we talk about something called material time derivative. Material time derivative. Okay, now what is material time derivative? So for example, it will be denoted by d capital T, not partial derivative but total derivative. Okay, so total derivative of temperature with respect to time, for now the point that you are considering. Okay, for x in omega, where x is a material point. Now x is a material point, okay, at t equals to t naught. Now what is the difference between the two derivatives? So if I again take the same example of sheet rolling, so let us say I have two rollers and I have a sheet which is entering the rollers. It is getting thinned and it is progressing ahead. Now in this particular case, if I am interested in a certain material point, so let us say now the point of interest, okay, let me call it as P prime. Now P prime over here is a material point, okay, is a material point. Now how do I measure the temperature of a material point? Anybody?
Thermocouple.
You can use a thermocouple. Very good. So what I can do is, it's not easy really. This is very, very difficult. But nonetheless, what I can do is I can use a thermocouple. Normally you have these two wires, okay, meeting over here and then forming a junction. Okay, so I can use the thermocouple wire in order to measure the temperature T. Measure the temperature T of this point. Now what will happen if I insert a thermocouple here? As the sheet moves, what will happen to the thermocouple?
Will deform.
The thermocouple will also move along with the sheet, and you will be monitoring the temperature of this point T dash. Okay. So what does material time derivative mean now? So material time derivative means, so if I am now going to look at, let us say Tp dash as a function of time, and for whatever reason if it is varying like this, then if this is time T naught, then what is my derivative? My derivative will be, so I take the slope at this point, whatever is the angle over here, if this angle here is beta, then tan beta is equal to d capital T divided by d small t. Okay, so this is a important concept, the concept of control volume and material volume. So for what kind of materials do you think we will be using control volume, and for what kind of materials do you think we would be using a material volume approach?
In fluids, control volume, and in solids, material volume.
Okay, so see, what approach you want to use is completely up to you. These are all mathematical concepts, and you can use what suits a particular problem. But in general, we use the control volume approach whenever we are dealing with fluids, and we use material volume approach whenever we are dealing with solids. Okay, all right. Now you have learned a decent number of concepts. Now we can go ahead and derive. Now we can go ahead and derive some governing equations. Okay. Now for the governing equations, let's start. Yeah, please tell me. Somebody has it out.
Sir, for large deformations, can we go for control volume approach, and for small deformations?
No, we don't do that. No, no. See, if you think, no, it doesn't work like that. See, when we are dealing with solids, in the case of solids, stress in the material is a function of strain or deformation. Okay, so in order to solve any solid mechanics problem, we don't have any other option than to track the deformation of the material. Okay, and we can do that only if we use a material volume approach. In control volume approach, we are not tracking the material. We are simply looking at we are simply looking at results as a function of position, as a function of points in space. Okay, when you are doing for example, velocity profile of fluid in a pipe, okay, you say that, okay, as a function of radial distance, this is the velocity profile. You do not say that, okay, for this particle over here, this is the velocity profile. Whereas in solid mechanics, we say that, okay, displacement of this point of the material is this much. So the approach, no, for solids, whether it is small deformation or large deformation, we use the material volume. We use the material volume approach. Okay. All right. So let us now go ahead and look at the governing equations for some situations. We will start with conservation of mass. Okay. Now, okay, if you look at the black figure over here, you will see that I have drawn two shapes. Okay, a outer shape which I have denoted, whose domain I have denoted by symbol omega, and a subdomain whose volume I have denoted by omega prime. And for domain omega, its boundary is d omega, and for domain, subdomain omega prime, its boundary is d omega prime. Now, why am I showing these two regions? So what we are going to, so the domain omega corresponds to that of the actual region of interest. So for example, if we are solving for temperature field in a heat sink, okay, so omega would correspond to the material occupied by the, or the volume occupied by the heat sink, okay, whereas omega prime is some arbitrary subdomain, okay. I am considering some small portion of the overall volume of the material. It will become clear as to why we do this in a second. Now, whatever is the solution to the problem, what did I say the solution has to satisfy? In the last class, we were looking at the constraints which the solution to a problem has to satisfy, right? So what are all the different constraints which any solution to any problem has to satisfy?
Governing equations and material laws, boundary conditions.
Very good. So we have to, the solution has to satisfy the conservation laws, it has to satisfy the material laws, and boundary and initial conditions. These are the things which the solution has to satisfy. Now let us see as to what do we get when we impose this conservation laws. Now if I take an arbitrary subdomain omega prime, now what is the statement of conservation of mass? The statement of conservation of mass states that net mass entering the control volume omega prime per unit time would be equal to net increase in mass in omega prime per unit time, okay. All we are saying is, if we consider some control volume, whatever is the mass entering per unit time, it should be equal to the increase in mass in the control volume per unit time, correct? Now, what is the mathematical equation for this? So, what is the mass entering the control volume? Let us see. If I take a area element ds prime, an area element ds, okay. So on this control volume, if I picked some point, and if this had some, and if I took some area element ds with a normal n, then what is the volume of material which is leaving the control volume per unit time? It will be equal to velocity, it will be equal to velocity of the fluid at that particular point dotted with the unit normal multiplied by ds. This is the, this over here is the, from here to here is the volume, what is it? It is the, sorry, it is the volume leaving ds per unit time, okay. Now if I want to know about mass, what do? I multiply it with density, then I get to know the mass which is leaving the area element ds per unit time. If I want to know the mass entering, then what do? I put a minus sign. So minus density times velocity dotted with n times ds would be the mass which is entering area element ds per unit time. If I want to know the net mass which is entering the control volume omega prime, then what do? I do a area integral, okay. So I do an integral over d omega prime. So the left hand side of this equation tells us as to what is the net mass entering the control volume per unit time. Now let us look at what is the net increase in mass per unit time. Now if I take a volume element dV, what will be its mass? Its mass will be density into dV. Now if I want to know what is the change in the mass of that volume element per unit time, then what do? I do a partial time derivative. Now why am I doing a partial time derivative and not a total time derivative? Anybody?
Density is a function of space.
No. Why am I?
We are following control volume approach.
So we are using a control volume approach. Okay, we are not tracking the material. We are simply looking at a certain region in space, and in that region in space we are looking at a infinitesimal volume. Okay, dV, and what is its mass? Rho times dV. And with respect to time, how is it changing? Partial time derivative of rho dV divided by dt. Now, does dV change with time in control volume approach? Does dV change with time?
No.
No, dV does not change with time in the control volume approach. So what happens? So in this integral, dV comes out of the derivative and you end up with partial derivative of density with respect to time. Now, on one side we have a volume integral and on another side we have a surface integral. Now how do I get volume integral from surface integral? How do we get volume integral from surface integral?
Gauss divergence theorem.
We can make use of the divergence theorem. So let's do that. So now using divergence theorem, what do we get? So if you go to the divergence theorem formula, you will see that wherever you have a dot n, that will be replaced with the divergence operator. So what do we end up with? So this surface integral becomes volume integral, and this term becomes minus divergence of rho times velocity dV equals to this. Now both terms are volume integrals over the same domain, subdomain. So I can club the two terms, and what do I finally end up with? I end up with partial time derivative of density plus divergence of rho times velocity dV equals to 0. Now over here, how did we pick this subdomain omega prime?
Arbitrary.
It is arbitrary. Okay, you can pick it to be anything really within the overall region of interest. If you can pick it to be anything, then you can take it also to be very small. Okay, if it is very small, then what will the integral become? If omega prime is infinitesimally small, okay, then what will the integral become? Or how can you rewrite the integral?
It will be the integration sign will cancel out and the dv will become d omega dash.
No. Yeah, means so it will be, the integral will simply be whatever is in the square bracket multiplied by dv. Okay, when the volume is very small, you can take the function to be constant within that volume. Okay, so because this is arbitrary, it must so happen that the integrand must actually be 0. So because the above equation is arbitrary, we get that this whatever was in the square bracket must be equal to 0. Where must it be 0?
At every point. At
It
every
must
point in
be
the domain.
0 at every point within the domain. And at what time? At what time must it be 0?
Anytime.
Every time.
At every time. Okay, so this equation must be 0 at all points in the domain and at all times. Okay, so this is the constraint equation which we get, which has to be satisfied at all points in the domain at all times for means if this equation is not satisfied, what is violated?
Mass conservation.
Mass conservation is violated. Okay, so for mass conservation to be true, okay, for any arbitrary subdomain, this equation must be valid at all points at all times. Okay, so this over here is your governing PDE for mass balance. Now, did we make any assumption regarding the material for which this will be valid? Is any assumption involved over here with regards to the material, or whether this is static problem, dynamic problem, transient problem, steady state problem? Did we make any assumption anywhere? No, we did not make any assumption. Okay, so this equation must be true in any problem that you consider, irrespective of what material you are dealing with, irrespective of whether this is transient or steady state, irrespective of whether this is solid, liquid or gas. This equation must be valid in all problems in order to ensure mass balance. Okay, so this is the mass balance PDE. So now you know that the complex linking equations actually come from very simple balance statements. What did we use in order to get to this point? All we used was the divergence theorem, and then we applied the conservation statement in order to get here. Okay, now next let us look at conservation of energy. Any doubts for the mass
Sir,
balance PDE? Yeah.
Sir, that equation what is written at the last, that is that the total derivative of rho v with respect to time?
It is divergence.
No, like del rho by del t plus del dot rho v equal to
Yes,
0.
del.
The left hand side, is it the total derivative of rho into v?
Yes, it is total derivative of rho into v. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Next, let us look at conservation of energy. Now, once again, you have some material of interest. Okay. Once again, it could be a heat sink, it could be an engine block, it could be anything. Now, within the region of interest, we are considering some arbitrary subregion omega prime with boundary d omega prime. Now, what is the conservation of energy statement? The conservation of energy statement is, now what we are going to do is, for getting the governing PDE for energy balance, we are going to use material volume instead of control volume approach. Okay, instead of control volume approach. So if omega prime is an arbitrary material volume with boundary d omega prime, now what is the immediate effect of saying that this is a material volume and not a control volume? What is the immediate effect?
The mass remains same.
Mass remains same and material will not enter or leave the material volume. Okay, heat can enter and leave, but material cannot enter and leave. Okay, and the mass of this material volume is constant. Now, I told you that in problems the shape can change. Okay, so but then I am going to do analysis on one shape. Why am I doing that? In the earlier in this problem, I will do analysis on one subdomain shape, but I told you that material volume shapes can change. So why is it that I am able to do analysis on a single shape even though shape is changing with time?
Sorry, sir, voice was not clear.
My question is that when we are applying the conservation statements, we are not worrying
your voice is
ourselves.
not- There is
The
some
voice
disturbance.
is not clear. Some kind of disturbance is there.
Do you still have a problem, or you are able to hear now?
No, sir, I still have the problem, sir.
Is there anybody who is able to hear me clearly?
No,
No,
sir.
sir, there's lag in your voice. The lag in.
Okay, then it must be
Sir, I think, sir,
must be internet connectivity problem. The connection seems fine, but then probably the speed is low or something. What do we do? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll continue, and then I'm going to post this video on YouTube. I'll share the links. Last lecture link also I have got, so I'll share both the links. Are you still having the problem?
No, sir. Now it's clear.
Okay, fine. Let me continue then. So what we are doing is we are applying the conservation statement at a particular point in time. Okay, so at a given time I am taking a snapshot, a photograph of the system, and then I am doing the analysis at that particular time instance. That's the reason that means during this conservation statement enforcement we don't talk too much about the shape changes. Okay, so all right, so now I'm considering a material volume omega prime with boundary d omega prime. What is the conservation of energy statement? Net heat entering omega prime per unit time plus net heat generated in omega prime per unit time will be equal to what? It will be equal to the net heat absorbed by the material in omega prime per unit time. Okay. Now if we write down the equations for each of the terms, what do we get? First term, net heat entering. So if I take a area element ds, what is the heat leaving that particular area element per unit time? It will be the heat flux q dotted with n multiplied by ds. This will be the area, sorry, this will be the heat. So this over here, this term over here is the heat leaving ds per unit time. Now if I want heat entering, then what do? You put a minus sign. Now minus q dot n ds is the heat entering the omega prime per unit time for area element ds. If I want total heat entering, then I take the area integral, or I do the integral over d omega prime. Now what is the heat generated per unit time within the volume? So if G denotes heat generated per unit volume per unit time, then net heat generated will be volume integral of GdV. Okay. Now can anyone tell me what are the typical sources of heat generation in materials?
Electrical resistance.
Fine, electrical resistance is one thing. In mechanics problems,
Strain energy.
Viscous dissipation.
so if it is a fluid, it can be viscous dissipation. If it is a solid, it could be plastic work. Okay, when you plastically deform a material, majority of the work you put in to deform the material gets converted to heat. Okay, so for a liquid you have viscous dissipation, for a solid you have plastic dissipation. For a gas, is there anything else which can contribute for a gas? Gas is
Chemical
also a fluid.
reactions.
You have viscous dissipation, but is there any other phenomena that can result in heat generation?
Chemical reactions.
Chemical reactions. I'm only talking about mechanics. Okay, if you have chemical reactions, you are getting into
Frictions.
combustion.
Friction.
Sorry, in during re-entry, okay, of satellites, there is enormous amount of heat generation. Okay, what do you think causes that extreme amount of heat generation during re-entry?
Viscous dissipation.
Viscous dissipation is a part of it, but it's not the majority heat generation source. You can, for a gas, you can also have compression. Okay, volumetric compression of a gas can also result in heat generation. Okay, so um, so you can viscous dissipation, plastic work, volumetric compression. These are the typical sources of heat generation in mechanics problems. Apart from that, you may also have some electrical heat generation, or you may have because of chemical reactions. So fine. So G over here is the heat generated per unit volume per unit time. And what is the heat absorbed for over a material volume dV? What is the heat absorbed per unit time? So what is the mass of the material volume?
Rho dV.
Rho dV is the mass of the material volume. If increase in temperature per unit time is 1 degree, then what will be the heat absorbed by dV?
MCP.
It will be simply rho dV into C. Okay, specific heat of the material. Now, but what will be the change in temperature of the material per unit time in a general case? See, if the change in temperature is 1 degree, heat absorbed in dV is rho dV into C. Do all of you agree on that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in general, what will be the increase in temperature per unit time or for 1 second? What will be the increase in temperature in the material? How do you estimate that?
Right.
Huh?
Time derivative of temperature.
So you take the material time derivative of temperature. Okay. So it is simple, right? So what is basically this? So if you are looking at d capital T by d small t, what is it? So this is basically limit delta T tending to 0 of what? Change in temperature for the material divided by change in time, correct? This is the definition of material time derivative. Now, if delta T, we are looking for increase in temperature for change in time of 1 second. So what will that be? That will be approximately equal to, no, that will be equal to material time derivative of temperature with respect to time. Okay. So heat absorbed by the material per unit time in volume dV is rho dV C into dt by dt. Now once again we want to convert all integrals into volume integrals. So what do?
Divergence.
We apply the divergence theorem on the first term. So if you apply the divergence theorem, what will happen to Q dot N? So Q dot N will become
Grad of Q.
it will become divergence of Q. So on the whole, what will the equation become? Square bracket of minus divergence of Q plus heat generated per unit volume minus density times specific heat times material time derivative of temperature with respect to time equal to 0. And because omega prime is arbitrary, what must be true? minus divergence of Q plus heat generated per unit volume equals to density into specific heat into change in temperature with respect to time. And once again, this equation must be valid for all points in the material at all times. Okay, and so this is the energy balance. This is the energy balance differential equation. And by the way, note that the material time derivative using the chain rule can be written as partial time derivative plus gradient of temperature dotted with velocity. Okay, now once again, for this equation, did we make any assumptions on material, whether it's a gas, solid, liquid, or whether it's transient? Did we make any assumption? No. Once again, this is a generic equation which must be valid in all problems to ensure energy balance. Okay. Now, if you see, there are two variables here, right? In the equation, temperature is one field variable, heat flux is another field variable. How are they related? Now, Q over here is actually conduction flux, okay? Because remember, we are dealing with material volume, so you can only have conduction fluxes here. So conduction flux, what is it? So we can assume Fourier law of heat conduction. This is a pretty good assumption for most materials. So heat flux Q can be taken as minus K gradient of temperature. So if you take this equation and plug it into the energy balance differential equation, what do you get? You finally get this particular energy balance PDE. So instead of Q, we put minus K gradient of temperature. There was already a minus sign before. So minus of minus becomes plus, and you finally end up with divergence of K times thermal conductivity times gradient of temperature plus, sorry, this is not a rho, I made a mistake, one second, plus heat generated per unit volume per unit time is equal to density times specific heat times dt by dt, okay, for all points in omega at all times. So this is the energy balance PDE. Once again, energy balance PDE. Any doubts? So you see, all we are doing over here is we are starting with some conservation statement. We are writing down the statement in integral form, okay, and then we apply the divergence theorem, and using the fact that the integral could have been taken over any arbitrary subdomain, we get finally a governing differential equation. So this is the standard procedure that we adopt in order to get the governing differential equations for problems. All right. So